First, I want to thank the Marin's Women's Political Action Committee for sponsoring this forum. I think it gives a great opportunity for the voters to hear what the candidates have to say. As a proud member of the Action Committee, and grateful to be here. I would like to just basically start out, tell you a little bit about myself. I think through the questions that are coming later, you'll see where we stand on the issues. My name is Derek Knell. I'm 54 years old, and I have two sons. They are 28, 31 years old. They went through school here in Marin County, Novato primarily. My family is from Marin and Sonoma. I am the youngest child of 7, and I have 4 older sisters, which basically gives you a fairly good insight as to what the issues are when it comes to women in society and culture. I truly appreciated those years and the things that I learned doing that. Essentially, I am running for state senate because I think voters deserve an option and some choices, and they need to hear the issues discussed. And primarily my goal is to see that as your state senator, that I am going to make the ordinary interests of everyday Californians the primary concern of the state legislature. So I look forward to answering questions and getting to know everyone during the rest of the campaign.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight. I want to thank the Marin Women's Political Action Committee for organizing this evening's forum. My name is McGuire. Very brief background. I was raised by my mom and my grandma. My grandma took us in and got us back on our feet financially after my mom and dad had a bad divorce. My mom and I struggled growing up, and I started working as a junior in high school and worked my way through college. I have 15 years small business management experience, and I was first elected to the Healdsburg School Board at the age of 19. I'm the city of Healdsburg's youngest mayor, and I was elected to the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors in the depth of the recession. And my focus has been making sure that we have jobs for working families, as well as turning our budget around. And we turned years of deficits into a surplus and made Sonoma County one of the top metropolitans in the state of California in job growth. And I think your experiences growing up impact your priorities as an adult, which is why I've helped lead the effort to open up the Family Justice Center in Sonoma County. It's a single location for victims of family violence and rape, and it empowers victims with comprehensive services through a single point of access. And access to health care for women and children and seniors has also been a significant priority of mine. I've helped to champion pioneering projects to support pregnant women, children, and seniors from vulnerable populations. And in fact, we've invested millions into these pioneering projects. And I've been focused on education, and in particular, job and career training. I've been endorsed by Congressman Huffman, along with Congresswoman Woolsey, State Senator Evans, and of course, Marin County teachers and nurses. I'd be honored to earn your vote tonight.
Thank you. One of the big issues facing California now is potential drought. There's a proposal to build 2 massive tunnels between the Delta that would divert water from the Sacramento River before it reaches the Delta to export to Southern California's agribusinesses and Southern California's sprawling cities. There's also plans possibly for desalinization. There's water catchment, gray water, all kinds of ideas out there. What are your thoughts on how to resolve the water problems in California, taking into consideration, of course, expense, the environment, etc.? Why don't we start with Mike?
Thank you so much. And we have 1 minute?
90 seconds.
There we go. Watch out. First of all, I do not support the Delta Tunnel project. Very concerned in regards to Northern California's water supply when it comes to the development of that potential project. And it would be taking Northern California's water and shipping it to Southern California. And in fact, do believe that Southern California needs to focus on conservation prior to us moving forward with the Delta Tunnel project. And in particular, they're talking about this project not being subject to CEQA, which is great concern not just for the environment, but our continuing water supply. I think that our efforts would be greater spent on projects that I'm advancing today. In fact, raising Coyote Dam. Coyote Dam supplies the county of Marin through Lake Mendocino and Russian River with 25% of its supply, 80% in the city of Nevada. We need to focus on ag storage reservoirs for our agricultural entities, and we need to focus on additional redundancy in storage here in Marin County. And through the drought legislation that's been brought forward by the legislature and the governor, I think that we can advance these progressive projects. So I think that's where we need to be focusing here at home first.
Thank you. Derek?
The issue of water is fairly broad. It's going to take several different kinds of approaches to solve this problem, especially for the long term. It's a matter of mostly infrastructure. I would say that we need to do much more in the area of storage and conservation as primary efforts to combat drought seasons. I also think, or agree with Supervisor McGuire, that promoting the more storage at Lake Mendocino and locally is a good idea. The issue of the delta, it has to be weighed very carefully. I don't support moving ahead with it without a CEQA process, but when we're talking about the state of California, we're always talking about jobs and the economy. We have to recognize that Southern California is part of the state of California, and it isn't an us against them. We trade with them, they trade with us, and if we're going to solve our economic problems, we have to be open to the kinds of things that will improve the economy and create more jobs, and building an infrastructure that serves the state and its people would be vitally important. Now, that's not to say that I would promote anything that's irresponsible or reckless towards the environment, but I do have an open mind about this, and I would serve as a state senator not only for the North Coast Redwood Empire, but I would be interested in the full state economy and the benefit that it would bring to businesses and jobs.
There was a lot of questions from the audience about campaign finance reform. A couple of those are, the public is frustrated because even newly elected legislators who claim to be reformers take tons of thousands of dollars from dark money sources. What would you do to expose this hypocrisy? Have you ever publicly authored or sponsored or supported a strict campaign disclosure law that would require that all campaign advertising to list the major donors and who paid for the ad? And what do you propose for meaningful campaign finance reform? Starting with Derek, I'm sorry.
Well, this is a very important issue to me especially. I am deliberately not asking for or seeking endorsements from individuals or organizations that directly benefit from how the state spends its money. So the problem in Sacramento often is the case is the focus isn't on you and me as ordinary Californians. It's based on being beholden to a strict party agenda and all the money that is raised and contributed by these particular special interest groups. My opponent is a very, very large recipient of special interest funds and money, and I find it very hard for him to be objective and reasonable when it comes time to solving these problems. No, I haven't had an opportunity to author any specific legislation, but I do strongly believe in the people's right to know and transparency. So I would support legislation and work towards a system that let people know who everybody was who contributed money, because often the political class or the apparatus that runs campaigns has found lots of different ways to work around this particular issue of transparency. And again, all for the primary reason to retain power and benefits for themselves as a result of state funding.
Mike?
Thank you so much. We'd like to be able to talk about campaign finance reform first. Ultimately, if we were sincere about removing money out of politics, we would bring forward public campaign financing. I have always been supportive of this initiative and would bring forward legislation if elected as this district's next senator. 2, I would be in favor of banning campaign contributions during the legislative session. And the reason is this: it would be more difficult to raise the dollars needed to run for a state office, and it would focus on a grassroots campaign like the one that we are running, with over 60,000 door knocks and phone calls since October. In addition, I would restrict independent campaigns. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court has come out against this, but I believe that the state needs to be a leader on this initiative. And I also support the Disclose Act, talking about who is paying for the advertisements that the public is seeing. And finally, I'm proud of the over 1,400 small donors that I've received since October, from individuals that belong to the Sierra Club who have endorsed our campaign, to the Sonoma County Farm Bureau who have endorsed our campaign, to teachers, and to nurses, and to firefighters. And I'm proud of that support.
All right, we're going to start with Mike on this one. I lost the card, but it was the question we asked the assembly earlier, and that was, how have you helped women either get elected or run for politics or get involved in politics? And the second part of that is, if you're elected, are you going to appoint as many women, if not more, than men to any positions that you can?
Thank you so much. So yes, I have been very supportive of women being elected to local office, as well as statewide office. I have worked closely with Congresswoman Lynn Woolsey on her campaigns for the House of Representatives, and Senator Evans, along with the first female district attorney in Sonoma County's history, Jill Ravitch, one of the first female mayors in the city of Hillsboroug's history, Susan Jones, one of the first female mayors in the city of Cloverdale's history, Carol Russell. It is about walking that talk. And I want to talk with you about appointments. As a member of the Board of Supervisors, we have the ability to be able to appoint to numerous boards and commissions. I have been very focused on appointing female representatives to these boards and commissions, as well as those from minority populations from throughout the county. If we are serious about changing the face of government, we have to move forward with our own actions first.
Well, this is certainly an area that I have a very strong record in. I'm signed up ready for Hillary. I'm a contributor for that organization. I was elected by my Democratic peers to be Hillary Clinton's presidential candidate to the 2008 convention in Denver, and I was very proud to do so. And one of the primary reasons for that was for my active support for the Fair Pay Act that she was sponsoring at the time. And this is an area where I truly walk the talk. As a business owner, I've always strived to train and hire and promote the women who work in my company. As a school board trustee, as a direct result of efforts on my behalf, things have happened. Primarily the discovery of administrative officials making $6,000 a year less than male counterparts in other districts. As soon as we found that out, something that I insisted we corrected, and we did. If you'll look at the Nevada Unified School District, you'll see that the superintendent is a woman and most of the administrators there are women, and that's not an accident. That has to do with the board's leadership, for which I am one of the individuals who strives to have more and more women participate. I'm also responsible for many programs within our schools to help young ladies and girls promote themselves within their school classes. And in the last middle school promotion that I went to, all of the officers and the speakers at that event were women. So quite frankly, I'm getting a little worried about the boys. We may have to do some motivation along those lines as well. But nonetheless, I have a strong record, and we'll work to appoint and support women at all levels in leadership in the private sector as well as the public sector.
Okay, I think we want to do the 1-minute closing.
No, No, we have till 8:15.
I have 8:05, sorry.
Why don't we ask one more question? I think it's more important to have questions than, if that's okay. Ms.
Yes,
Moore.
that's fine.
Position on fracking, California? What is your position on fracking in California?
Would you like me to-
Yes, mine, or whoever started last. Sorry.
I do not support fracking. I think fracking is reckless and careless. There's too much evidence to the effect of the damage it does to our water table and the surrounding environment. It does not make sense in California, certainly, where we have earthquake faults and other issues. I think we need to work harder on alternative energy solutions. I would much rather see sustainable energy promoted going forward. So I would do whatever I could to prevent fracking from taking place in the state of California.
Thank you. I think this is one of the most significant environmental issues that is facing the state today. And in fact, I was extremely disappointed at the legislation that was brought forward last year and signed into law by the governor in regards to fracking. It simply tells us how we are poisoning our underground water supply and allowing fracking to not only continue but to advance in the state of California. One of the first pieces of legislation that I'd like to be able to bring forward is not just a moratorium but a ban on fracking for good in this state. And I think the other issue that we need to discuss when it comes to fracking is the millions upon millions of gallons of water it takes to be able to extract that natural gas from the shale under the soil and have deep concerns of that. And as all of you know, there have been discussions about fracking in the environmentally sensitive Eel River Canyon in Mendocino County, as well as off the California coast. We've had that battle once before when it comes to offshore oil drilling, and we need to make sure that we never have that battle again and ban fracking for good throughout the Golden State.
Okay, who are we? Mike, you're starting. If elected, what will be the first bill that you will introduce and why? And you just told us what it was going to be. What legislation do you tend to introduce that will be the most important to this Senate district and why?
That's great, thank you. So, as just discussed, I think one of the first pieces of legislation would be a ban on fracking, as that has great impact not just on the state's water supply, but also on the future of what our environment looks like. But on legislation that's going to be important to this district, a fewfold. One is public education. There is no greater equalizer than having thriving public schools throughout the state of California. We are 49th when it comes to per pupil spending throughout this nation, last in counseling, last as well as in librarians. We need to bring forward comprehensive legislation that will provide for additional funding for our public schools, as well as our community college, UC, and CSU system. Two, we need to have a sincere discussion about a comprehensive water policy for the North Coast and Northern California. That's another area that I think that we need to be focused on. And then also on jobs. We are still coming out of this recession, and Marin and Sonoma counties are in much greater shape than the rest of the North Coast. But this is a very diverse district. If you take a look from the southern end, we have communities that are among the top 10% in highest wealth in the nation. And you also have Trinity County that leads the state in unemployment. We have to focus about turning our economy around, making sure that our rural communities have access to rural broadband, thriving public schools, as well as healthcare institutions as well. So I'd also be focused on jobs and economic development.
Well, you'll find no farther, greater advocate for public education than myself as a school board trustee, and I would hope that Mike would support full funding of Proposition 98, and that he would stop talking about realigning funds from Prop 30 towards the prison realignment issue, where counties are having to take prisoners. The last debate we had, you suggested that Prop 30, which is specifically designated for public schools, should be renegotiated at the state level, and those funds should be redirected towards the prison realignment issue. So certainly I will be protecting and standing for education. My primary goal as a legislator, though, will be not so much as creating more legislation, but as refining it and reforming it into a more business-friendly attitude. Jobs is the most important thing. We need to create more business and more work in the state of California. It solves so many of our problems. It helps the higher education issue because when you have a good economy, you have a higher revenue and you can do the things that you want to do. So I would be a pro-business advocate in Sacramento.
And I just need to clarify, what I stated at the last discussion in Ukiah is that Prop 30, in addition to providing funding for our local public schools, also guaranteed through a constitutional amendment funding for counties when it comes to prisoners coming back from state jails, so state prisons. So that actually was the discussion, and I had no say in regards to how Prop 30 was drafted.
Okay, I think now we need our 1 minute closing. Derek, why don't you start?
Basically, I'm running for state senate because I think the primary focus of our state government needs to be you, the ordinary working and retired people of California. For far too long, special interests have been running Sacramento, and both parties have basically been guilty of aligning themselves with special interests and creating candidates and legislation that favors them over the regular, ordinary interests of California. What we need is a government that's focused on citizenship and not the organizations that benefit directly from the spending of state funds. So I would simply ask, as the campaign goes on, that you be patient, that you visit my website, listen to the issues as they come out, and try to keep an open mind and respectfully ask for your vote when time comes.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here this evening. And again, it has been an absolute honor to be with you and Mr. Knell here at this evening's discussion. I'm running for state senate to be able to focus on the communities and making sure that our neighborhoods have the resources they need to thrive. I'm going to be focused on jobs and economic development, reinvesting in our public schools, and particularly those $18 billion that have been rated for public schools since 2008. We need to deliver responsible budgets, as I've done in the county of Sonoma, and strongly reinvest in programs and services that help working families and seniors. And we need to protect our environment and our coast. 40% of the California coastline is in this beautiful district, and that would be one of my top priorities, in addition to be able to deliver infrastructure projects for our most rural communities. I've been endorsed by Congresswoman Woolsey and Senator Evans, Supervisor Rice, Sears, and Arnold, the majority of the Novato City Council, as well as the San Rafael City Council, and I would be absolutely honored to be able to have your vote on June 3rd. And again, thank you so much for allowing both of us to be here today.